Hey guys, Simon from ARB Shepparton. One of the great things about being in sales for over 20 years is the people you get to meet and the stories they tell. I find it fascinating to sit down with a customer and go through all the places they've been, the things they've done and the things they've seen. So we want to bring some of those stories to you. So we're going to grab a group of customers, head up the bush, do some four-wheel driving and let them tell you their story. So sit back, relax, stay tuned while we bring you ARB Shepparton's four-wheel driving with friends. Hey guys, Simon from ARB Shepparton. Welcome to ARB Shepparton's four-wheel driving with friends. On today's episode, we've got a guy who's done it all in a four-wheel drive, from the Outback Challenge to life membership president at four-wheel drive clubs and all his recreational touring as well. Welcome aboard, Dallas Rundle. How are you, mate?
Hey Simon, how you going?
I'm well, thank you, buddy. So Dal, tell us about where it all started, mate.
Well, I grew up on a share farm type deal in Gippsland and drove my first Land Cruiser at the age of 6. And then since then, I've never been out of four-wheel drives, right up till today.
Right up till today. Fantastic, mate. So Dallas, tell us a little bit about where you grew up, mate.
I was born in actually Moe in Gippsland. Lived down there in my junior years, but Tangel South. Ended up on my grandfather's farm at Wanron. Then my mum remarried and we ended up in Shepparton when I was 11 years old. 11,
okay. When did the four-wheel driving start for you?
Well, I drove me first, when we were on the farm, we had a 45 series Land Cruiser tray. And at 6 years old, someone let the clutch out for me and I'd steer around the paddocks. And then when my mum remarried, my stepdad had a Series 3 Land Rover V8. And we went all around Australia and four-wheel driving and camping everywhere, every weekend. And I think that's really when I got the bug of four-wheel drives. When we moved to Shepparton, there was no really four-wheel driving where he was from and we needed the money, so he sold it and we ended up with a couple of years later, back those days, a couple of years old GQ Patrol, and that took us everywhere else until I was 18, and then I brought my own four-wheel drive.
So Dal, you turned 18, bought your first four-wheel drive. What was it?
Back in those days, mate, it was a lovely 40 series Land Cruiser, four-wheel drum brakes, 4-speed with an overdrive. Treated it like shit as you do as an 18-year-old. Probably should have died in it at least twice that we can think of. Sat it on the bull bar once in a quarry. It fell backwards on the wheels, not the other way, thank Christ. Had it through water that deep that my mate's missus was sitting on top of the back seat so she didn't get wet. Didn't stop, it got out the other side. Anyway, in the end it got a bit long in the tooth. So I actually traded in on a Series 3 ex-Army Land Rover of all things. And it was slow, but got us around the bush, and we did a bit of camping back in those days, so you could get like 14 people in the back of it and point it at something to go up. But it was as slow as hell, so I only had that for, I don't know, 3 years or so and got out of it. And then I had no four-wheel drive for a while. I got into street cars pretty hard after that. I can't remember how old I was, but it was 99, 2000 I reckon. I brought a Maverick, Ford Maverick. TB42 petrol, bench seat. She was a good thing, 33-inch tyres on it, and steered that around for a couple of years, had a ball. And then we used to run an event up here called the Boho Bounce over at Strathbogie. We were leading a hard trip one day and I was tailing Charlie and I smashed the bull bar into a bank trying to get out of the creek that everyone had wrecked before me. So then I needed a bull bar and it was Christmas, so one thing led to another and a bloke was selling a bull bar and another bloke was selling a winch, so for Christmas that year I brought myself a bull bar and a winch, spent $2,000 on a Christmas present. And yeah, that sort of started the journey from there. Then we had half the stuff we needed to get a bit more serious, and yeah, that's where the story started.
So Dale, you mentioned the four-wheel drive club, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well in about 2000, when I got the Maverick, my mate Brett Sawyer, he was part of the four-wheel drive club on and off, so we sort of got involved again, and one thing led to another. I ended up president, got coaxed into being president, which ended after 8 years straight of being president. I was sort of over it by then, but we had great times. It was a different era back then. There was no social media, so if you wanted to find tracks or go four-wheel driving, people, you had to meet up with people, not just get on the internet and ask someone where a track is. So we spent a lot of time driving around the bush. We rode dirt bikes back those days, so one weekend we'd ride dirt bikes, the next weekend we'd go four-wheel driving, so we used the dirt bikes to find tracks. And yeah, it just went from there. I'm a life member now of the four-wheel drive club. Met a hell of a lot of nice people out of it and seen some countryside and had laughs, and got enough stories to laugh 100 years out of it, but yeah, it was good times.
So Dale, at the age of 27, you really started to get into your four-wheel driving. When did the competition start?
2001, a group of us went and spectated the Outback Challenge at Broken Hill and thought that looked like a bit of fun, so come home and made the decision to go back in 02 in my car with Bert, my mate, as co-driver. So my car was on gas and that type of stuff, so I just pulled the gas tank out and taped a bit of shit up and thought we'll put all this back to standard when we get back, and left half of it in there. Took Bert's wheels and tyres off his truck, put them on mine, put a half roll cage in, put another battery in, and had a handheld GPS as a GPS, and off we headed. So we went back in 02.
So it sounded a little bit rough, mate, but how did it go?
Yeah, it was a big learning curve real fast. We took bugger all spares with us, and blokes were coming in with broken arms and bent arms, and Bert and I were looking at each other thinking, Christ, I hope we don't bend one of those, we haven't got one. Truck survived. We trailered it up there because we'd done 460,000 Ks, and I didn't think it was going to last that long. So we managed to trail it up there, and then the first stage was about 40 minutes at about 4,000 in third range low, and it didn't blow up, so I knew we were onto a good thing after that. So I drove the arse out of it for the rest of the year. I can't remember, I think it was like 50 something cars. We come mid 30s or something. It was just a good learning curve. Yeah, had a ball, so we decided 03 we'll go back again. So didn't change, went back on the same wheels and tyres again, second-hand tyres that had been driven home from the Outback on, back in the good old days. Maybe, I think we upgraded some shockers, that was about it. Roof lights so we could see a bit better. Anyway, so we went back in 03 and smashed the roof lights off on the first stage, so that was the end of them. Bent every arm that we took as spares this year. Bent the front diff, hit a track going into the homestead at 90 kilometres an hour at 90 degrees, and had 40mm bump stop spaces for those playing at home, and the diff still hit the sump, so broke the revision mirror off the window, hurt me back, so it was a big hit, and that was the end of the diff, but it was bent, but we drove it home. Burnt the winch out, just the normal shit you do when you get excited, but I think we come 27th out of 60 that year, which was better. And yeah, that's when the big revamp happened. I got passed in the creek by Mark from Johnson's Performance Centre in Melbourne, JPC, in 03, and I swore to Bert no one will ever pass us in the creek ever again. So 03 to 04, I turbocharged it, placed the front diff with a GU front diff, twin shocks, hydraulic bump stops, bit of a tune-up on all the shit, and went back in 04, and yeah, she was on for young and old. We'd gone from low range to high range, and yeah, having to use the brakes to slow down because we're going that fast. And had 11 top 10 finishes, won the mud outright and come 5th outright, so I was pretty happy in the end. And then 05, I lost my job a week before the event, so I decided I owned the truck and didn't owe any money, and if we go up there we're going to come back with a repair bill, so I pulled the pin and didn't bother with it after that. Then it just got used for social four-wheel driving for the next how many years, and when I needed a speed fix I'd go and get it out and flogged the guts out of it and put it back in the shed, and then eventually I sold it to a young gentleman that works at ARB Shepparton. And it lives to fight another day. It'll probably get trashed like it's never been trashed and flogged like it's never been flogged eventually, knowing the way he drives, but it's good to see that it didn't go to waste. But I had 100 years of memories in 3 years and met some bloody great blokes, and yeah, had great times. Can't put a price on memories, as they say. But yeah, it's one of the best things I ever did in my life, I reckon, till then. Get out and see the world and see people, and yeah, good fun.
So mate, you sold the GQ, so what do you roll around in now?
My current wheels is this mighty GU here, 4.5 petrol. It's the best car I've ever owned, I'll give it credit. I try and look after it a bit better than the Maverick, but it has got high mount and a bit of stuff, and it's got a front locker that's been in the shed for 5 or 6 years that needs to go in it. Had no snorkel for 5 years, till the water came over the bonnet one day at Dargo, so I decided I better put a snorkel on it. But yeah, it gets me around where I need to go. I just pull my head in a bit instead of pointing down tracks that we shouldn't point down. But yeah, she's been a good trusty steed to me for the last 12 years probably. And there's nothing else to buy to replace them now, that's the problem, because I refuse to drive a Toyota.
So mate, what's the biggest change you've seen in the industry so far?
I think the recovery equipment has come miles and miles compared to when I started. We had snatch straps, was about all we had. You had to be a rich man to have a winch back in those days. Things are a lot more affordable now. The whole industry's just grown massively though. When I was young, you were a bit of an outcast if you had a four-wheel drive as a young bloke, and now every second young bloke's got patrols and cruisers and beadlock rims and all the shit that we can never afford. But it's just a massive industry now. I think the dual cab industry is just absolutely massive in Australia. Yeah, as I said, it was pretty rare to have, you go four-wheel drive, you wouldn't meet many people. Now you go four-wheel drive, you run into people everywhere you go. So it's obviously just got massive in the last 20 years or so.
So Dal, you've done a lot of stuff. You've been in the Outback Challenge, you've done Winch Challenges, you've been in the four-wheel drive clubs. What do you do now, and where's your regular trips you go now?
Oh, now it's family life. I try and get out a little bit, not as much as I used to. Try to get Dargo every year. We do a snow trip every year. I usually get up around Coffs Harbour twice a year. The odd run over to Strathbogie. Depends what's happening with family life, and life changes and your life moves on as you go on, but I still enjoy, nothing better than being out in the bush in the quiet, relaxing, and I still enjoy four-wheel drive, and I just, yeah, try not to hurt the truck like I used to hurt the truck as you get older. I've got better things to spend money on than repairing things, but yeah, I'll try and get as much as I can, but not like I used to.
What's the most memorable experience you've had in a four-wheel drive, Dallas?
Oh, the memorable would have to be the Outback Challenge. The speed stages up there are just out of control. The adrenaline pumps like there's no tomorrow. I couldn't list the amount of good times I've had in four-wheel drives. The Outback would have to be the one though. There's only something you can experience between you and co-driver and other people that have competed. You can watch as many videos as you want and talk to people until you go and do it yourself. It's just, thankfully a lot of people now get the chance to do it if they want to, but it's unbelievable. That was the best experience I've had, I reckon. Scariest experience, I think 03 Outback. It was the winch wall, vertical winch wall, and a bloke decided to take the chicken track in an 80 series Land Cruiser and got it jammed in the rocks. And they had a snatch block hooked up to a tree trunk or to extension strap up a bit, and he was winching in, and the snatch block was coming back to him. The car wasn't moving, and he stopped to talk to the co-driver, and the co-driver leant on the roof, was kneeling on the rocks. That's how deep it was, and they were talking, and the strap broke, and the snatch block went back and took the right hand driver's mirror clean off between them. That was cable back then those days. You died like real men back those days. That was the scariest thing I've ever seen. That put the wind up a lot of people because that could have been nasty. But yeah, overall, still been good experiences. I wouldn't change anything. Just hope a lot of other people get to experience the same thrill you get out of getting out the bush or racing, more the point. Don't race in the bush. Ends badly.
So Dal, thanks very much for joining us on ARB Shepparton's Four-Wheel Driving with Friends. It's been a pleasure. I hope everyone else enjoys your story as much as we do, mate. Thanks very much.
My pleasure, mate.
Thank you. And guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned to the next episode. And remember, ARB Shepparton, 180 Benalla Road. We'll see you there. So Dale, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and stuff, mate.
I grew up in my mummy's belly, mate.
That's the blooper reel. So Dallas, tell us a little bit where, I can't speak. So Dallas, tell us a little bit where you grew up.
where we